Alright, what's up everybody and welcome back to the Alpha Obeisance channel. Man, I've got a lot to unpack in this video. I'm going to try and make it as quickly as I can because the latter half of this video is going to take me a little bit longer. We're going to go ahead and dive straight into the comments section so I can tell you guys what to expect from this video. We're going to be covering my NixOS configuration because it has been requested on a few different occasions. This is the most recent where they've been asking me to provide my NixOS configuration. For those that don't know, I'm running an AMD Ryzen 9 5950X with an RTX 4090 24GB overclock GPU. It's a pretty monster system for its time. So I need you guys to understand that if you're wanting to run my NixOS configuration, I have run my NixOS configuration on a Ryzen 5, a Ryzen 7, and the Ryzen 9, as well as a GTX 2060, an RTX 3080, and an RTX 4090. So as long as your configuration is within that same generational pool, it should work without any issues. You really shouldn't even need to make any manual modifications to have a functioning NixOS configuration using mine. That being said, in theory, older AMD CPUs and NVIDIA GPUs, it should still somewhat theoretically work. It's worth a shot anyway if you're having trouble. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and share that NixOS configuration, and then we're also going to address a few other things. I've included, since I finally got around to creating a GitHub account so that I could share the NixOS configuration, I figured, well, hell, while I'm here, I might as well share a bunch of scripts that I use for convenience sake. I've written them way back when I first started using Linux, and I just used them, and I kind of never really stopped. There's probably better ways to do it, but it's just my way of saying thank you for watching. If you're a new user, I'm going to be sharing some scripts you may find useful. Last but not least, Black Bag Data and I got into a conversation. He's got a lot of similar hardware, although more than I do. And he took the same route that I do. He's got the Dell PowerEdge servers. He's got the Sabrent PCIe adapter. He's got the SSD. He's using Clover. He's using Proxmox. Great conversation, man. Welcome aboard. But we got to talking about Ollma and OpenWebUI. For those that don't know, these are LLM, it's LLM software, a private AI or self-hosted AI. As well as anything LLM, which is another private or self-hosted AI. And he wants to know my experiences, especially with the video card. It says that, yeah, we talked about the GPU pass-through on Proxmox. Brother man, I'm still struggling with that one. I'll let you know as soon as I figure out what's going on. But we can definitely talk about Ollma, OpenWebUI, and I'm also going to talk about stable diffusion for image generation. So that's going to be the bulk in the latter half of this video, and I'm going to crash course the scripts for the NixOS users as well as the beginners to Arch, Linux, and Debian, as well as Fedora. We're going to cover that. I don't have Fedora in here yet, but hopefully by the time I post this video, it'll be available. So, NixOS users, your configuration file that you've been asking me for is right here. The only thing that I can really tell you, like, you should be able to deploy this configuration immediately and have it work. The only thing I would recommend you do is you comment out this section. And for new users that really don't know anything about what they're doing, when I say comment out, I mean put a hashtag in front of these 3 lines. You see how this hashtag here prefaces this comment? That means that this is basically invisible to the computer. It's only there for the user to read. So for new users, comment these out. Put hashtags, pound signs, whatever in front of these 3 lines to make them null and void. You can address this after you get your system built. You can go in and you can get your UUIDs and stuff like that. If you don't know how to do that, drop a comment below. I'll do a tutorial at some point and help you get there. But for now, go ahead and just comment those out if you're a new user so you don't have to deal with that. I will tell you that by commenting this out, if you have multiple hard drives in your computer, they're probably not going to show up, because that's what this is hard drive configuration, making sure that the computer can recognize your hard drives where you want them to be recognized. So yeah, that's the first thing I want to disclaim. The second thing I want to disclaim is this portion right here is the environment.sh system packages. This is all of your preference software. Now, I've got a lot of things in here for example's sake, but most of this is you're probably going to end up installing it at some point or another, barring the DualSense control. But everything else in here is pretty standard stuff, like your GNOME disk utility. This is convenient for the new users that don't know how to do it down here. You can set everything up with GNOME disk utility if you need to. HTOP for system monitoring, IP tables and IP set. These are just basic system tools, and so on and so forth. So I just encourage NixOS users looking to use my configuration on their AMD CPU, NVIDIA GPU builds. Just go over this, make sure everything here is kosher, and make sure that you've got everything you want. I tried to include, most of you guys are gamers that are asking me for this stuff, so I've got Steam and Lutris, as well as OBS Studio for streaming, Mango HUD for watching your system performance while you're gaming, and so on and so forth, as well as Proton Up Qt helps you keep up Proton GE up to date with a simple GUI. So that being said, that pretty much covers the NixOS configuration. There's some notes I put up here for you guys, just if you need it, as well as a link to the actual NixOS manual. If you have any questions, I'm telling you, first and foremost, go here. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump back to the main here. The rest of this is going to be for beginning users. Maybe you know what a terminal is, you don't know how to use it, but you'd like to learn, or whatever. Maybe you're learning it and you just want a more convenient way of doing things. Again, there's going to be an Arch Linux, a Debian, and eventually a Fedora folder here. And all three of these folders will contain 3 basic scripts that all achieve the same exact functionality based on the system that is hosted, in the main directory. So for example, if I go into Debian, you're going to see 3 scripts here: firewall management, maintain, and user management. So if you go into firewall management and you take a look, I've tried my best to briefly describe what these things do. It's nothing super intricate or elaborate. I'm by no means a programmer. These are just convenient scripts. So what the firewall script does is it checks for UFW or firewall D. These are 2 common firewall utilities. If it detects them, it's going to go ahead and ask you, what do you want to do? Port forward or remove port forward? If it does not detect either of those, it'll ask you if you want to install one of them. And upon whichever option you choose, it'll either install UFW or it'll install firewall D before proceeding to ask you if you want to do any firewall management tasks. So this is really handy. It saves you a lot of manual work. If you are brand new to Linux and you're trying to learn this stuff, my advice to you is just reverse engineer what I've done here. Look at the code, stare at the code, like, oh, you know what sudo is, you're new to Linux, but you know what sudo is. That's authorization. Okay, apt-get, that's your install script. Okay, cool. Update. And so all you got to do is just go step by step and just reverse engineer it to see exactly what's happening here. That being said, next we've got the maintain script. This keeps your system updated and cleaned up. There's really not much else to say about it. It cleans up orphan packages and unnecessary files, checks disk space, and so on and so forth. Pretty basic. So if you want to update your system and clean it all at the same time, you run the maintain script. Last but not least, we've got user management. It provides you with an option to add user, modify user information, delete user, list users, list groups, modify permissions, and exit. That's all pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. We're going to jump back here to the main, and we're going to go into the Arch Linux directory here. We've got the firewall, the maintain, and the user management, but because I'm an Arch Linux user, I got a couple extra goodies here. We're going to cover this one in a moment, but for now, we're going to go to sensor check. This uses LM sensors to get readings on your CPU. Every single one of my videos, you guys see my NeoFetch here, and I've always got my sensor readings. That's because this script is called anytime I open up my terminal and my shell is executed, or my ZSH is executed. So that's pretty convenient. It gives you a really easy way to keep an eye on your temperatures every time you open up your terminal. Next, we've got toggle NVIDIA vSync. There are certain circumstances you may or may not want vSync enabled. One notable thing is that NVIDIA proprietary drivers occasionally have screen tear when you're playing video or video game or something like that. And if you happen to notice that your screen is tearing and it's driving you nuts, you can execute this script and it will enable or disable vSync, whichever you prefer. And oftentimes that'll fix whatever the issue is. In fact, when I run with vSync on, I have zero screen tearing whatsoever. So that being said, I'll briefly describe this. We've got the function to check and make sure that all NVIDIA packages are installed. If you don't want to be using NVIDIA proprietary drivers, you need to modify this package right here to whatever you want. That's pretty much it. It checks to make sure all your packages are installed, all your NVIDIA related packages, and then pretty much executes your NVIDIA vSync toggle. And that's pretty much it. Your screen will flicker a little bit. If you're using i3 Window Manager, go ahead and refresh because the wallpaper doesn't always load properly after you enable vSync. But other than that, you're good to go. What else we got here? That's pretty much it. So hopefully all you beginner users out there for Arch, Debian, or Fedora-based systems. So I don't know if I've already reiterated this, but for example, if you're using Arch Linux, Manjaro, Garuda, or any other Arch Linux derivative, these scripts will work. If you're using Debian or Ubuntu or Linux Mint or any other Debian-based derivative, it'll work. If you're using Fedora or Red Hat, or for some awful unknown reason you're using CentOS, the Fedora scripts will work for you. If you're a beginner, I'm not going to break that down for you. I just all I gotta say is that Arch Linux, Fedora, and Debian are basically the parent for most every distribution out there, and the syntax used for all of their derivatives is the same. So for Arch Linux, to install a package, it's sudo pacman-S. For Manjaro, it's the exact same. For Garuda, it's the exact same. The way that you interact with the system is exactly the same as the parent distribution. So all of these scripts should work for everybody out there using these main systems or derivatives. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and check out the install LLM stable diffusion .sh script. So for those of you that don't know, I tinker on my system a lot. Meaning I deliberately go out of my way trying to do things, and oftentimes if I don't understand what I'm doing, I break my system. And if I can't figure it out, how to fix it or backtrack or roll back, then more often than not, I'm like, well, to hell with it. I'm just going to reinstall my system, take me all of 10 minutes, and I'll be back up and running. No big deal. The only difference is that doing that, and having been doing that for a few years now, I've come to learn that it's really convenient to have automated scripts that just basically help redeploy your system the way that you like it to be. And that's exactly where this script come from. Is I got tired of having to go to every single Git repository for every single service, trying to track everything down and then remember which codes work, which ones don't, and so on and so forth. So I created this script that basically gives you a menu option that says, do you want to install Ollma and OpenWebUI? This is the LLM with the front end. It'll ask you if you want to install Stable Diffusion with Automatic 111's process of doing so. He provides a fantastic front end for that. And so on and so forth. So what we're going to do, you can look over this. It's the same process as all of the other scripts. It checks to make sure all your dependencies are made. It pulls the model, changes directory to home, and then it creates virtual environment and so on and so forth. You can review the code. I encourage you to do so to make sure there's nothing malicious there. And we're going to go ahead and deploy this over here. We are already in here, and I've got the original right there. So we're going to go ahead and bash deploy ai.sh. It's going to give me my menu, and I'm going to select number 1 for install Ollma and OpenWebUI. I'm going to input my password, and it's going to ask me if I want to proceed with the installation. You can see here I've already got everything installed, but I'm going to go ahead and reinstall anyway. Press Y for yes and press enter. It's going to go ahead and go through that process. Now I will kind of run down this a little bit while this is proceeding, and with any luck it'll actually work. But This is the kicker right here. Pretty much everything above this line is dependency checking and making sure that everything's squared away, making sure you've got Ollma installed, making sure you got your model installed. I use Mixtral. You can change this to whatever you want, whether it's Llama 2 or Llama 2 Uncensored or Dolphin or whatever. You just change that right there. You can get different models from Hugging Face and you're good to go. This here is the command that I use to deploy OpenWebUI. It effectively allows me to grant public access if I want to my LLM. And you can see over here on my terminal, it says everything seems to have gone good. Press enter to continue. So now we're back at the main menu. And if I go back to my browser and then navigate to my public IP and port 8080, then I am brought to a ChatGTP clone, essentially. So I'm going to go ahead and log in with my account here, and boom, there we are. We've got my LLM running. I've got Mixtral. I'm going to go ahead and set Top Hat as default. I'm not going to do a full-blown open web to UI tutorial. If you guys would like me to do that, I will gladly do so, but I feel like we're running on now. We're about 15, 16 minutes in. We're just going to do a quick test. Hello, Top Hat, and see if he actually responds. Make sure we've got Mixtral installed. But as you can see, we're sitting here talking to my AI, and it was kind of slow. But I've got Top Hat programmed for me. It's got a memory of all of my system specs, my home lab specs, and it just kind of told me what it's capable of. So yeah, that's OpenWebUI. Not bad at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install Stable Diffusion. If we'll hop over here, we'll press number 2 and press enter. I'm going to type MNT. We're going to do it in the Mammoth drive. And did I spell that right? Yes, I did. So once I determine on this line where I want to install Stable Diffusion, it's going to ask me about dependencies. I'm going to go ahead and press Y, and it's going to go ahead and start pulling all of that information. Now, I did provide source information. I am installing Stable Diffusion thanks to Automatic 1111 and his method of deploying. I'm not sure how to define it or describe it. I'm not a programmer. I've just found this stuff online. So big shout out to him for making this possible. This is all I've just got an automation script for deploying all of their scripts. That's all this is, guys. I've done nothing fancy here. I'm just consolidating the installation process for all of these convenient softwares that other people have written. So I'm going to go ahead and kick back here for a moment while this installs, and I'll be back with you momentarily. And just like that, we are now running Stable Diffusion. Now, there's a few things that you can do. It comes with the default checkpoint here, and I'm just going to crash course this, guys. I use different models. There's a whole process. Again, if you want a tutorial, I'd be glad to do one, but for now, you put your prompt here, your negative prompt, things you don't want shown in the image here, things you do want shown in the image here. Typically, I will go to uniform on schedule type. I will actually do anywhere between 50 and 100 sampling steps. I will generally do a high-res fix, and I will leave that at latent. I'll typically do about 50 high-res steps, and I'll upscale by 30. I do both vertical and horizontal based on my primary monitor. So I've got a 3440 by 1440 monitor, 2 of them. And so what I will do is I'll typically do about 360 and 860 if I want a vertical, and the upscale will pretty close to that. So the images, say I'm wanting to create a really cool wallpaper for my desktop or something, then this is how I would do it. Next, I would probably drop this down to 0.5 on denoising steps, and then I would actually choose prompt matrix on the script, and then I typically use spaces, but you can use comma or whatever. And after that, you know, you put in let's say a loving pit bull, because we all know pit bulls are awesome. Pit bull. We're just going to do a loving pit bull. We're going to go ahead and click generate, and it's going to start generating an image. So there you go. We got us a little pit bull. It's going to take a few seconds, and it'll create the image. And there we go. We have us a picture of a horribly mutilated pit bull. Again, guys, don't judge. I'm not even using dim. I use DDIM more often than not. Sometimes you can use Euler or Euler A. I mean, DPM++, 2M, it's not that bad, but this prompt is not very descriptive. There's not a whole lot of information for the AI to go off of, but you get the general idea. If you'd like an in-depth tutorial on how to do this, I would gladly do so as best I can. I'm going to disclaim first and foremost that I am by no means a master at any of this, whether it's the LLMs with OpenWebUI and Ollma, or whether it's Stable Diffusion thanks to automatic 1111's process. I know just enough to get by. So that being said, guys, this is how I do it. This is what I do. If you found any of this useful, I really appreciate it if you let me know in the comments section below. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely let me know below. If you like what you saw, you learned something, consider smacking that like button. It actually does help us out. And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. I'll upload, I don't know, occasionally.